So I think we're set to go now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're live. Welcome,
Okay.
everybody. Welcome to Global Education's Virtual Expo for 2021. We've got an exciting webinar for you here today, one that we're very proud to sort of share and to show that we love supporting them. It's the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. We've got one of the international recruiters here who looks after the head of marketing as well. So you've got a real asset in play into finding out some details about the University of Groningen and what it'll take and the student life, a little bit of postgrad as well in there as well. So if you are a postgrad student, please do stay in and listen into the webinar. We'll have a presentation and then we'll have sort of a Q&A discussion for the remainder of that presentation as well. And as always, please contact Global Education or University of Groningen directly if you're in our region, and we'll gladly look after you and get you that further information. So before I hand over to Charlotte, I'm just going to give it a couple more minutes for people to sign in. We've got, I think, almost 23 people in this webinar already. So thank you for joining in. It's fantastic to see you here. And Charlotte, I think we can hand it off straight away. Let's get into it.
We get going. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that wonderful intro. And I just want to say it's good evening from me. As you can see at the moment, I'm not in Groningen, in that the backdrop you see there, I haven't got in the background. But I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit. So I'm Charlotte, and I am the head of marketing at the University of Groningen. As you can tell, I am not Dutch. I'm actually British, and I have lived in the Netherlands for, I think it's almost 5.5 years. I used to move to Groningen, having never lived there. I didn't know anybody. I literally just looked for a country to move to where I felt safe, I'd be welcome. And as a Londoner, I just wanted something different, but I'll touch upon that a little bit later. But what I want to do in the time we have here is just to tell you a little bit about the university and give you an idea of what the University of Groningen has to offer and what it's about. So I'll start with this awesome picture that you see here at the very front. This is our university building and basically everybody has a bike. I have 2 bicycles, but I don't really like cycling. But this is our academy building. And it's where, when you finish your degree, it's where you will get your final certificate, but we also have some classes in there, and it's right across the way from the university library. So we'll just get straight into it. Let me get sorry. Let's get going. Let's get this started. So moving on to the next slide here, hopefully it works. There we go. So people often ask, what is it like to study in the Netherlands? Now, I don't know if many of you have heard of Quora. I think most people have. I use Quora diligently to ask random questions that I don't have the answer to. So the first one, people often ask what it's like to study in the Netherlands. And this was just something that I Googled on Quora, and someone was just asking an Italian student, what is it like to study in the Netherlands? So the first thing is, and this is a testament as someone that's lived there 5 years, near enough everybody speaks English, which is good, but it's also a little bit annoying because you walk in and you try to speak your best Dutch that you've learned in a textbook, but near enough everyone speaks English. Now, I know some of you may speak Afrikaans. You are way ahead of me because Afrikaans is a little bit similar, very similar to Dutch. So, sorry, I'm shutting doors in the background. So if you speak a bit of Dutch, perfect. So if you speak a bit of Afrikaans, perfect, because you'll be able to understand it. If you don't, you can get by. I speak possibly like a 3-year-old, maybe like a 4-year-old on a good day, but you do not need Dutch at all. You can get by perfectly easily. The other thing is, they wrote, it's great student live, they meant student life. In Groningen, I'm an adult living in a student world. Now, if you compare that to someone that goes to university in Utrecht or Amsterdam or The Hague, then you are a student living in an adult world, in the sense that in Groningen, we have 1 in 4 people is a student, I'll touch upon it later. It's the youngest city in the Netherlands. So near enough everything is geared up to students, absolutely everything. So for me, it's adapting to, there's a lot of sales on, a lot of the restaurants, etc. It's a very student heavy town. So it's quite young and vibrant and there's a lot going on. And as someone that left London, that is something I needed. I needed something that had a lot, like a buzz to it. And I'm lucky because I found it here. Now, I'll just explain a little bit about the Dutch education system, because I don't know if you do know anything about that. So there are two types of higher education in the Netherlands. One is research universities. Now, research universities are generally quite research orientated. They're quite analytical, statistics heavy, and it's for people that want to learn more about the why. So why is it X and Y happens? Why? What's the theory behind this happening? The other type of universities you have are University of Applied Sciences. And of those, you have about 40 plus. And that's more the how. So if you want to learn about agriculture, if you want to learn more about interior design, if you want to learn more about business, but more, not the theory behind business, but more of the how do I do business? Because in those, you also get an internship usually. So those are the two types. Now us, we are a research university, and I'll touch upon how old we are. We're very old. A lot of the applied sciences universities are a lot newer. So a little bit of an overview about the applied sciences. It's usually a 4-year bachelor's degree, and then a master's degree is 2 years. But usually if you do a master's degree there, you cannot come and do a PhD as a research university, which is what we are. So it's slightly different. If you do a bachelor's there, often you need to do a pre-master's to be able to progress on to a master's at a research university. But it's for people that want to know more about a profession or a skill. So, you know, trains you for a profession. So if it's people that want to go and know about, you know, train to be a physiotherapist or a nurse, as opposed to something like if you did international relations or law or biochemistry, that's something you'd study at a research university. And often they include some form of practical work experience. So I want to tell you this so you have an idea of the two types of educational institutions in the Netherlands. Now, research universities, by the way, all these photos are of the University of Groningen. This is our Faculty of Economics and Business. So research universities are usually 3-year degrees at bachelor's level, and then you used to do a 1 or 2 year master's. Now, 1-year master's is usually the humanities or the arts. 2 years is if you're doing something like biochemistry, as I mentioned, or engineering management, or anything that's science related. And then after that, you can go and do a 4-year PhD, and then you become Dr. So-and-so. So to give an example of my background, I did a 3-year bachelor's in politics and international relations with Japanese. So I speak Japanese, believe it or not. And then I did a 1-year master's in I did a 1-year master's after a conversion course in law. So generally that's the pattern that it follows. I did think about a PhD, but I don't think I'm ready for that. The other thing is the academic subject is the starting point. So there you focus heavily on the academics, and then you just focus from day one. So if we compare it to, say, Australian universities possibly, or American universities, where in your first year, you might spend the first year doing sort of astrology or Afrikaans, or I don't know, the theory behind earthworms, something random. In the Netherlands, from day one, the minute you start the subject that you signed up to do, from day one. And in there, it's more theoretical. Theory is the basis, critical thinking, problem solving. And often employers in the Netherlands quite like that because they can take you and put you in a situation and you know how to solve the problem. You might not be an expert in, I don't know, change management or human resources, but you identify a problem based on your university study and you can work to try and fix it. So that's why research universities sort of aim more in that. So we teach you more about the theory and the subject, but how do you apply it yourself? So the education system, and I'll get into masters in a second. Research universities, as I mentioned, it's a 3-year. With the Universities of Applied Sciences, it's 4 years, often with 1 year being an internship. I'll come and touch upon the credits per year as well. Just to give you an idea, and when I talk about the entry requirements, you'll understand what I mean by that. We have exchanges. Now we've got partners in Costa Rica, in Hong Kong, in Denmark, in Ghana. We've got partners in South Africa. We partner with Stellenbosch, is one of our partners. So we partner with Cape Town. So we partner with a lot of universities globally, a lot of universities in the US as well, Canada. So if you want to do an exchange year in your third year, you can go and do that as well. You see their binding study advice. I will touch upon that. Just remember that. When I say BSA, please remember that, because I will remind you about what that is. And also when I touch upon ECTS, with regards to binding study advice, this is very, very, very important about the passing grade, et cetera, et cetera. So file that somewhere in your brain, and I will come back to that because it's really, really important. So I'll tell you a little. Groningen is 406 years old now. It was founded in 1614. It's the second oldest university in the Netherlands. We're a little bit younger than Leiden, which is the other old university. We have about 35,000 students. So we're one of the larger ones. I think University of Amsterdam, maybe Utrecht have a few more than us. So we're quite a big university. And of those, 25% of our students are international, which is not too bad. And for me, when I was looking for a move to, as a Brit coming from London, which is very multicultural, I wanted to go somewhere where I would feel that I'd blend in, or I'd feel that I would feel at home basically. But I also didn't want somewhere that was too big and too daunting, because I could have just gone to Amsterdam. And I found that Groningen, with sort of 120 nationalities, a good number of international staff, is nicely international. We have also the highest number of English taught degrees in the Netherlands, because we were one of the first universities to start switching over our Dutch degrees into English. So when you're looking particularly at bachelor's level for English taught degrees, you'll find most of them. We have most of them. So have a look on our website. We have a lot. 11 faculties, and I'll touch upon those in a second. We've been very proud to have 4 Nobel Prize winners that we've nurtured. The most recent was in, I think, 2016, which was Ben Feringa, and he worked with 2 other researchers, one from the University of Edinburgh, one from a US university, which I can't quite remember. And they developed something called the nano car, which is this tiny head that could potentially be injected into a vein or something. And the idea is that in the future, it can sort of dispense medication and sort of work through your veins. So it's a nano car, and the use of that is something that they're looking to develop, which would be great, especially at a time like now. Rankings wise, top 100, and I'll touch upon that a little bit later, but we're top 100 in near enough all the rankings, which we're quite proud of, but it's not something we heavily focus on. But most of the Dutch universities are in the top 100, except for about 3, which are in the top 250. So Dutch education is solidly good. And I never knew this when I lived in the UK, because in the UK, I always thought about, Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, et cetera, but then I sort of got the Netherlands on my radar. And the more I looked into it, I was like, okay, education in the Netherlands is actually really good. So that's also something to look into. Now, like you, maybe you do know where Groningen is. When I left my beloved London here, honestly, I didn't have much of an idea of where Groningen was. I knew where Amsterdam was, because everyone knew, and I think I knew where The Hague was, but I didn't know where Groningen was. So Groningen is about, let's say, about an hour, about 35 minutes, let's say, from the from the German border, about 5 hours from Berlin. So I've actually last summer, popped over to Berlin for a weekend. I'd been able to fly home when people could fly to London for a weekend. And I used to fly home on Saturday morning, go to a friend's birthday party on Saturday evening, and then fly home on Sunday. But obviously, as we speak now, can't happen. It's about 2 hours by train. No, yeah, it's just under 2 hours by train to Amsterdam. I like Groningen again, because when you get to what we call the Randstad is Amsterdam, Utrecht, The Hague, all of that is all clustered together. In Groningen, you're like in this lovely environment, lovely bubble that's a little bit separate, but it's also very accessible. And for me, that was important, that if I needed to get away for a little bit and explore the rest of Europe, I could. And it works really well. And, you know, a little train to Paris, I've gotten a train to Barcelona a couple of years ago. So it's easy to be there, but also escape and explore the rest of it. So why Groningen? So some of these are some of the reasons that I looked into it, but it's something for you to think about as well. So it is the youngest city in the Netherlands. Like I said, 1 in 4 people is a student. That's 60,000. You've got the bulk of the population is under 34. I mentioned bicycles and the fact that I don't love them, but it's a necessity. Everybody rides a bike. I think my bicycle skills are questionable, but I get around and have managed to do it quite well. So it's the top bicycle city in Europe. You've got lots of startups. There's loads of events and festivals when we're having a normal year. So there's a lot going on. It's really, really vibrant. Our English Talk programs, we have 35 plus bachelor's programs. I did think of listing all of them, but then I thought that would take another hour probably to try and get through all of that. We've got master's programs, we've got an honors college, so you can do your basic program, but if you think, you know, I want to be pushed a little bit more, then you can do honors. These are all our faculties. So from arts and humanities, you can do anything from international relations. We've got the faculty of law, we've got media studies, we've got journalism, we've got psychology and behavioral, we've got programs in sustainability at Campus Friesland, we've got economics and business, we've got medicine at bachelor's level, but that is a challenge to get into. And remember, medicine is geared to the Dutch audience, but they do have English programs, but it is a challenge to get into. Philosophy, science and engineering, engineering management or chemical engineering, spatial sciences, human geography. For example, why is it, you know, how do you build effective cities so they cater to everybody in the country? And then University College Groningen, which is liberal arts. If you're good at a little bit of, for example, the sciences and you love physics, but you also love economics, but you also want to know a little bit about philosophy, but you're also kind of interested in international relations, the program at the University College is perfect for you because it allows you to encompass all the little bits that you've done at school that you're really interested in. All these faculties also have master's programs. So if you're a master's student, anything that I mentioned at bachelor's level, we have a whole range more at master's level. The academic year, I'll breeze through this relatively quickly. It's 2 semesters. We start in September, so it's a bit of an upside down version of your year. So September's when we'd start. So when you guys finish in Jan, Feb-ish, which is perfect, because whereas other guys are sort of doing their final exams, trying to figure out their accommodation, everything, you guys are the other way. So you could sort of get that stuff started. And remember I said that from the minute you start, you're doing your program. So each block is 10 weeks. So for people that have started in September, they had their first load of exams, I think it was November-ish. So you start, and as soon as you start, you're studying, and you have 7 weeks of classes, then you have exams. This year, people are asking, is Corona finished? Is COVID over? Sadly, no. So for this year, our education is hybrid. So for some classes, they are on site. So some of the medical classes are on site, but the bulk of it is being done online because sadly, that is the world that we're living in at the moment. But fingers crossed, we're seeing what happens in September. We're not sure, as I'm sure nobody is sure what's going to happen. So this is bachelor's entry requirements. Please do look at that. That is on our website. You need an NSC with 7 exams with an overall average of 70%. Now, life orientation maths lit not included in the average. And this is the next bit's the bit that stumps people sometimes. You need an IEB AP certificate in maths, physics or English with at least 55%. If you do not have the IEB, that's the basic minimum entry requirement. You will not be accepted. There's not an extra exam you can take. You do not have a foundation. You can go and do 1-year university at home, but we will not accept that. We do accept A-levels though. So if people are doing A-level programs, you need a minimum of 3 A-levels, an A-level pass. Now, an A-level can be in any subject you want. We do not ask for subject specific, and it can be from A to D because it's a pass. But I will come back to that because people are like, oh my gosh, it's so easy to get into this place. But what you need to do is try and figure out, okay, I can get in quite easily, but can I stay in? And that's what we'll touch upon in a second. Remember also that you need faculty-specific subjects such as chemistry, physics, maths, and biology to be able to get in. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to give me 1 second so I can close the door because there's a lot of background noise. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm back. It's just us now. Because obviously everyone's working from home and there's sort of people going and living their lives around me, which, as I'm sure you can understand, can be a bit annoying. So we're on the home stretch now, guys. So again, we're going to stay with bachelors. If you are applying international business, international relations, medicine, psychology, computer science, these programs are ridiculously popular and we have limited places available. So they have a selection program. What that means is you have to apply by the 15th of January for the year that you plan to join. And then you submit your basic entry requirements, but then you might be asked to do an online examination. In the case of medicine, you have to fly over to the Netherlands. So these are sort of things that you have to consider with a selection program. But the most important thing I can tell you is January 15th. That's the deadline. So if you plan to join us in 2023, 2022, you must submit your application by January 15th, 2022. Anytime after that can't be done. I hope that's clear. And then these are the number of places available for each of these courses. And other than medicine, this is the total number of places for Dutch or international, regardless of which you have. Master's people, you're required to have a bachelor's degree with honors. We do not accept people that do not have an honors degree. We do not have a foundation or a pre-master's for people without an honors. You must have an honors degree. Also, when people say, what are the specific entry requirements? This is quite difficult because they will look at your program. They might not look at your final grade, but they will look at the specific subjects you have studied, each individual module, to make sure that it ties in with the module that's needed for the master's degree. They also look at if you've got statistical modeling, research methods, because that's very important in the university for master's level students. And ideally you have a similar program, because sometimes we get people that say, oh, I studied business, but I'd like to do psychology now, I've changed my mind. The university doesn't usually accept that. You need to have done a bachelor's degree, because in the Netherlands, when people go to university, they go away for 4 years or 5 if they're doing sciences. The bachelor's degree is just the foundation, and the master's degree allows you to master the bachelor's that you have studied. So it's very rare that you're able to flip because you don't have the foundation of the bachelor's. Some program also ask for a GMAT or GRE, but that's mainly business and economics programs, and there's a couple in spatial sciences. But that's just to give you a bit of background for that. I'll touch on this as well. We have an awesome careers service. I was talking to them the other day. They do workshops. We get mock job interviews. They will tidy up your CV to make sure if you want to do part-time job or full-time job. We have a careers week. The Faculty of Economics and Business has the largest one, and they do a number of things to prepare you. So do not worry, we will get you job ready. Of course you study, but we'll also get you job ready for when the time comes. Now fees, I've put these into dollars broadly. Hopefully that's okay. I have not put them into rand. And I have them, so hopefully, I don't know if, I thought about putting them into rand, but I thought I'll just do it like this. It says my internet connection is unstable.
Hi, Charlotte. We've We've
everything's
just lost you on the connection.
okay. EU, non-EU, you're looking about 12,000 if you're doing a 12,000.
Hi, everybody. It looks like we've just lost Charlotte. Let's give her a couple seconds to re-sign in. She's just going over the payment options in payment fees in University of Groningen. With those expenses as well, they are relative to the industry as well, relative to the Netherlands. But yes, they're very competitive in terms of international, comparing the USA, Australia, the UK. What you get out of the Netherlands in terms of its pricing is a very sort of feasible option as well. It's one of the reasons why we at Global Education like to support the Netherlands, because of their fee structure. And especially if you do hold an EU passport in South Africa, you can actually qualify for the EU sort of rates as well. And these are things that we can sort of discuss with you as well. Hey, Charlotte, we seem to have lost you there.
Are we back?
Yeah, we can hear you. Perfect. Yes. We were just awesome. We were just talking about the prices in the Netherlands as well. So we'll get your presentation up and running, and then we'll get going as soon as you're ready there.
Okay. Thank you so much. As I warned you that hopefully the internet stays stable for a little bit long. Last couple of slides, but hopefully we'll be okay. So yes, those are the costs. I mentioned medicine is 32,000, so it's very expensive because everything. Are we? That is quite still hoping. So shall I continue? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, 15,000. Great. What I want to mention is, imagine if you lived in Johannesburg or Cape Town or Harare or London, versus if you lived in a slightly smaller town, a little bit away from the main cities. That's what living in Groningen is like. So you're looking at about 15,000 US dollars a year. It's substantially cheaper, which is good. There aren't any significant scholarships at bachelor's level, but that link there gives you an idea of the scholarships that are available for, well, near enough across the whole of the Netherlands, really, if you're looking for scholarships. But fees generally, I want to highlight, if you have an EU passport, fees are ridiculously cheap. They're a lot lower. So I'd have a look at that if I were you as well. Associations, I found that many students are very into sports of various kinds, and I've put the fees for the sport, the subscription for in dollars again. Now, I'm a member of this sports association, and I do love the gym. So they've got everything there for you. From a fully equipped gym, they have things like rock climbing, they have beach volleyball, ironically in the Netherlands. We've got horse riding, water polo, and there's all these different sports clubs you can be a part of: football, rowing, rugby, cricket, everything. I think we have 5 rowing clubs because Dutch people love to row. We have ice skating, not ice skating, it's not called ice skating, speed skating, that's what it's called. And also student association, we've got an international student association, an African student community. So there's a number of associations that you can join. It basically, you don't spend all your life in the classroom, so you need to figure out what you do outside of that. And we offer that opportunity for you as well. Now, accommodation. Before I fully launch into accommodation, I want to give a big fat warning. In the Netherlands, universities were told a few years ago that your business is to educate students. Your business is not to build accommodation. So accommodation can be a lot lower in availability than the students looking for it. Now, of course, in this in this year of Corona that we've got a lot of student accommodation, but in a normal year, we have about 1,500 rooms reserved and about 1,800 students looking for accommodation. So there's sometimes a bit of a shortfall. Again, you guys are at an advantage because you're upside down in that you've done all your exams, you know what you're going to do, you know what your grade is. So once you're sure that you want to apply, you can apply for accommodation, but know that if you apply for that and anything changes and you decide you don't want to, and you've signed a contract, etc., that accommodation is now yours and you've agreed to have it and you're denying it from someone else. So that's a decision you'd have to make quite early on. Once you've got an offer and you've been conditionally accepted, which you guys would do because you've got your final grades, then you can apply. It will open in April 2021. So if you're coming in September, it usually opens every April. If you want to look into private housing, that's the accommodation there. There's Facebook groups, but as with anything on Facebook, approach with care. Now, these purple things, sorry, these purple things are, let's take a sip of water, are where our accommodation is. Now, that big red star is where the academy building is. Now, if you remember at the very beginning, I had an academy building picture. This red star is the center, but all accommodation is quite close. It's not that far away. And that's usually what some accommodation looks like. And I think she's painting her nails there, presumably. And this is the last bit now. Now we have a lot of online open days. Now that's the benefit of being in the situation we're in now, is that we have a bachelor's open day coming up in April. We have a master's day coming up in March. Have a look at that website, sign up. Their registration is open for the master's one. Bachelor's one, it will be open at the end of March. Come and have a chat, have a look around, even if you're not sure. And we're doing it, but all the Dutch universities are currently, I talked to a few earlier today, everybody's doing an open day at the moment. In fact, not even just anyone. The benefit of being in the situation we're in now, you can learn so much about universities globally without having to leave your house. And that's a big advantage. So make the most of it. We have a lot of online fairs that we do, a lot of the big fairs. We have alumni ambassadors and we're just recruiting new ones. And I think there's a couple of ones from the SADC region. I have to find out later today. You can chat with current students through something called Unibuddy on our site. If you want a campus tour, an online campus tour puts you in touch with a student. You can also speak to someone from the faculty. And in some cases, they do a walkthrough of the faculty as well, although at the moment, everything is shut. So these are all the opportunities you have. And like I said, this is the last slide. I touched upon the BSA before, the binding study advice. Now, getting into, let me go back so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Getting into university is relatively easy. The binding study advice means that you have to, it's relatively easy to get into university, but you have to stay in. So if you think, oh, 77 is quite an easy grade for me, oh, 55% for an IEB program is easy. In that first year, you must get 45 out of 60 credits minimum. If you're at the university college, remember the one I said that you can pick different courses, you need 60 credits. If you do not get 45 credits, you get 2 or 3 chances to resit your papers. If you fail those papers, we will ask you to leave. And this is all Dutch universities. So the government believes everybody should have access to education, which is why the entry level is low, but you must work to stay in. And this is in the first year. So when I was at university in the UK, I lived my best life in the first year. I had so much fun, I did everything, and then I studied really hard in the second and third year. In the Netherlands, it's almost the other way. You do study throughout, but in that first year, you must get at least 55%. And if you get less than that as your final grade, then serious discussions will be had. But we talk you through it because it's corny to say, but your success is our success. So if you can do well, if you don't do well, then it kind of makes us also look a little bit bad. So we help you get through it. So this is me, Charlotte. That's my email if you've got a question, but also Global are amazing, and Global are able to hunt me down and ask me questions and get replies from me sooner than you might do if you contacted me yourself directly. We're on the gram, so follow us on Insta. We're also on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube on the usual spaces. But if you do have questions, do get in touch. We'll answer them. But also Global has a lot of them. And at this point, I'm now going to hand over to George from Global.
Oh, good, Charlotte. Thank you very much. I know we had a bit of internet issues with, I think, the region as well. So if people haven't seen the slides, we will be resharing them as well, so everybody can see this recording and the conversation after the presentation. So please put your questions in, and we'll have the discussion now with Charlotte about the University of Groningen. Charlotte, can I get you to try reshare your screen again, just so we can try get these slides up?
Yes. Okay. I thought I was sharing my screen.
It says you're sharing, but it's got just the blank screen in the background.
Oh, that's odd. How about now? Is that any better?
No, it's still blank. But
could this be
no problem.
A technical glitch once again?
All good. It's all good. What I'll do is I'll put our contact details up on the screen.
Okay. Perfect.
So these people can see our contact details, and they can reach out directly to us, and then we'll get them in touch with you straight away.
Perfect.
I wanted to sort of touch on a couple of things you mentioned in your presentation that I think is very pertinent to students studying in the Netherlands. We're both from that international student experience. So we both have gone through those trials and tribulations. The biggest thing I've taken away is learning about Groningen's support systems. So in terms of like looking for a job and employability and all those things, in terms of CV writing and guidance, could you just explain a bit more about how University of Groningen supports its students?
Yeah, sure.
We've got a couple of questions on that front, so I thought we could sort of answer them all in one conversation there.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll touch on the job hunting side of it, because everybody sort of, obviously you have the main funding you might have, but it's always nice to have a bit of extra funding to supplement what you might already have. So Groningen being a student city and being geared to students, there are a lot of opportunities for part-time jobs. And of course, you're not going to be CEO of a company, but it will be sort of part-time roles in restaurants or cafes. We have a lot of shops, etc., and retail. So those would be opportunities you could have there. The other thing that's worth mentioning is we have the career service, and we've actually just done a blog on our website, which is about perfecting your CV, whether it's for part-time or for internships. So the career service will help tidy up your CV or prepare it for an internship. So programs like the International Relations Program, there's an obligatory internship as part of that program, where you go and you do interviews, and you might go and do sort of policy or lobbying as part of the internship. So that's the career service. They actually look at your CV and help you practice, etc. The other thing, as far as student support outside of that, we've got a very robust student services center, and that provides counseling for people. I was looking at it lately the other day, because we're having our well-being weeks at the moment, and people that might have anxiety with regards to sort of completing their program, time management, being able to effectively find, okay, I'm worried about being able to submit assignments. How do I reach out to my supervisor or my tutor? So they help talk you through things that either might be directly related to your program or anything else. It could be that you're worried about, situation with your housemate and you're concerned about that. So the support system is there, because as I said in a rather corny way, finishing your degree successfully on time also benefits us, because then we feel we've done a good job in helping you to finish your degree. And we try and avoid people sort of not successfully finishing, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to help people finish their degrees.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm listening to you speak there, and I'm like hitting myself. Like, I wish I had paid more attention in listening to recruiters and the agents and sort of the university reps. And sometimes our egos can get away and not reach out for help. And that's one thing I wish I could have done differently.
Mm.
I've got another question here for you in terms of the campus and how the campus is sort of set up. Is it a multi-purpose campus, or is it just focused on a couple of departments? Just a
Yeah.
little bit on that, I think, will help people understand a bit more about Groningen.
Okay. So again, I'm going to use a corny term. The city is our campus. So just to give a bit of background of the city. So in 1600, the government of the Netherlands said to the city, look, we need a campus in the north of, we need a university in the north of the country. Can you give us a few buildings around the city, and we will turn them into campuses. We'll turn them into faculty buildings. So, you know, sometimes you can get EduRoam, which is the Wi-Fi that you get at universities. As you walk through the city of Groningen, it just picks up, because I walked past a building and it's a Faculty of Law building. You walk through the city, you walk past an H&M or a Zara, and then you walk a bit further and it's the Faculty of Philosophy. So the whole city really is the campus. We have the main campus, which has the Faculty of Law, Arts and Humanities, Philosophy, Theology. They're all based around that building I showed you in the first slide. And then our Economics and Business, Science and Engineering, Spatial Sciences, with programs like astrology, etc., engineering, are based on our Zernike campus, which is about, apparently it's a 10-minute cycle from the city, takes me about 15, but you can cycle there quite easily. And that's our second campus. Our third campus is in the city of Leeuwarden, which is a 40-minute train ride from Groningen. And that's where we have our campus, a University College Friesland, and our campus Friesland, where they do programs on sustainability. They look at the SDG, the development, sustainable development goals of the UN, things like that. The programs that are there, they're interdisciplinary. So in the main, we have 3 main campuses, but the big ones are in the city of Groningen. You will not find your typical green leafy campus in the city. At Zernike, you might do, because there are trees, but we are spread throughout the city, which I think is nice, because you're living in the city where you are studying. You're not isolated away from it.
Yeah, and it's such a great opportunity to have that network around you and be able to just meet people that might not be studying, but are, you know, running a cafe or a business, and, you know, the chance to you have that discussion and learn from them. It's really about that cultural experience as well. So obviously post-COVID, when things can get back to normal, these are things that
we're all
will help.
waiting for that. We're all waiting for post-COVID.
On that negative term of COVID, I know we're all sick of hearing about it, and we hope everybody's keeping safe on that front. What is happening with students in the Netherlands, especially at University of Groningen, in terms of, are they studying online currently? What will happen for new students coming in? What can they sort of expect?
Yeah. I think, sorry, I've got an itchy eye. I've been asked this a number of times, and it's often when people say, okay, what's going to happen in September? We just about know what's going to happen next week. So I can tell you what's happening until the 15th of March, because we had a press conference yesterday. So to give you a situation of what the Netherlands is going through at the moment, we've started vaccinating. So out of the 70 million population, we've vaccinated about 1.2, 1.5. So we're slow on the uptake, but we're getting there. We have got a curfew at the moment, and that's to sort of keep numbers down, because the Dutch are a very social people. So there are measures in place at the moment. So the bulk of our students are either studying at home or doing hybrid, where they do some classes at home, some classes at university, but generally a lot of the classes at the moment are online. When people say what will happen in September 2021, I was speaking to a colleague earlier today where we're like, oh, hopefully everything will be back to normal in September. We don't know. All we can say is that probably until the end of this academic year, classes will be online. Come September, it will depend on what's going on globally. We don't know. But what we do know is that we are able to deliver online classes at the moment. For those that haven't come to the Netherlands, of course, you miss out on in the UK, we call it the banter. You miss out on the banter, you miss out on the having a sports club with friends, except you miss out on that. But for people that are doing degrees that are longer than a year, you have the opportunity, okay, in the second year, I'll do that. For you guys that might be coming in September, it's actually quite good, because there's hope that come the summer, things will normalize a little bit. But I think globally, you could ask someone in Australia, Canada, UK, we don't know. And I hate to say that, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But even to hear you say that is kind of transparent in a way. We're very proud and be able to give up-to-date information, and to listen to a partner of the university speak and say, hey, we had a meeting last night, this is what's going on, we're running it at a weekly basis. These types of conversations offer that transparency, and like, hey, we're going through a global pandemic, we have to be patient, and we just have to keep going with our businesses, and with our, especially from a student's point of view, their endeavors of studying abroad. So we're telling our students, please speak to us directly, get as much information as possible. Don't sit back and just wait for September, when everybody's going to want to be traveling, and that's why it's a great time now. And on that point, I've got a question here for you that we might not be able to answer. It's very specific, but let's see how we go.
Okay.
To Carmen, Carmen, before we answer your question, please email Panos at global-education.co.za. Panos is great. He's our general manager in our head office in Joburg. He'll be able to answer your question directly as well and find out a little bit more for you. So Charlotte, I'm going to read it out. It's
okay.
Hi, thank you for your time. I have a more personal, specific question. I'm in my final year of my third year of bachelor's degree, a BCom in Human Resource Management, with the current CGPA of 84.47%. And I'm doing my honors in industrial and organizational psychology. I wanted to know if that would be sufficient to apply for the Masters in Work and Organizational and Personal Psychology at the University of Groningen.
Great question. And the answer that I'm going to give you may or may not be great. And I've made a note of this just to try and understand what you're saying. What they would do, and what I touched upon before, is they will look at the modules you have studied. So if you're saying you're doing an honor in industrial psychology, they will look at the modules you are studying in your honors year to see if that is sufficient for you to be able to go on and follow a master's in that subject. So it's not necessarily going to be your final GPA. It's not necessarily going to be how long your degree is. You're doing an honors, so tick. But they might say, okay, you might be doing statistical modeling and research methods, etc. So that might be a tick, but they need to look at the specific modules. And I hate to say this, but the best way for them to do that is for you to apply. But I can say that you're doing an honors in industrial psychology. That is maybe a tiny little tick, because at least you're doing something in the subject that they're looking for. So as annoying as it might be, because you want a full answer, all I can say is that it seems that you're on the right path, but because I'm not the admissions officer, I would recommend that you submit an application. It doesn't cost anything from the university side, but I'd recommend pop something through Global, because like I said, they can hunt me down when needed, and they'll be able to get the direct contacts, and they know how to do it. But submit an application through Global, and they'll be able to keep track and also get your response for that. But that's what I'd recommend. Hopefully that answers the question in a way.
Yeah, and definitely. And Carmen, if you're still on this webinar as well, we definitely recommend having the conversation early, especially with competitive programs in top ranking universities. With top ranked universities like the University of Groningen, you're going to have thousands of people applying. So you need to get in as soon as possible, and to have that conversation with us as well. In terms of Global, the way we help with applications, we speak directly with the teams. So we get you answers straight away. We can also find out what is going on in terms of why and what else you can do to sort of get in. So please do reach out to us so we can have that personal conversation with you. Charlotte, I've got another question here for you, and again, it's on admissions. So please, you know how it goes with these ones.
Yep.
What is the IEB? I'm presuming the independent exam board that you referenced. And if you don't take an AP subject, would you not get in? I think
See
it's very
that?
broad.
See, that's a pretty straightforward answer, I think. The IB is the Independent Examination Board, as you mentioned. And when we did an assessment of this, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and we liaised with Global at the time. And also we looked at the NSC, we looked at everything else, and everything in the Netherlands is compared to the Dutch high school qualification, because essentially you're coming to study in the Netherlands. So whether we're looking at Romanian qualifications, US qualifications, UK, Chinese, it's what's the equivalent of the Dutch high school qualification. So when we assessed the NSC in South Africa, we found that the NSC fell just a tiny bit short of the Dutch high school qualification. And in order to meet that, we needed to have an AP. So in that sense, I said an AP Maths, English, and I'd put in there also physics, because I think that was coming online. So at a basic minimum, you must have an AP. If you do not have, and we're looking into this because I know there's people that have variations, but we've been looking into it for the last 2 years. So as we sit here on a Thursday evening, you must have the NSC 7 subjects, not LO, Maths, Lit, 77%, plus the IEB AP with a 55%. If you do not have that, the alternative is to either go and do 1 year at university in South Africa, sit 1 year A-level at home, but we cannot accept you, I'm afraid. And we've tried to find ways around it. We tried to experiment, but we just found that there was sort of the academic level was just missing. And I've tried, but the academic boards just say, no, we need that AP as an extra. But I'm still trying, so we'll see.
And to the student that asked that, sorry, it was an anonymous question as well. So I always feel a bit weird answering an anonymous question. It's not a bad thing. It's just a case of have that conversation with us. Reach out to myself or info at Global, to one of us who will answer, and sort of have that conversation with you and find out what actually is going on. I do recommend that, even if you don't use Global and you don't end up studying, please reach out to us. We're able to help and find out what will work for you.
Because there are alternatives. Like I said, we are one university and goodness knows how many. So there are alternatives, and Global knows about those alternatives more than I do. I know about Groningen and what we need, but Global will be the ones that will be able to sort of guide you and hopefully advise you in sort of, for your profile and what you have, what it is that best fits you. So yes, as was said, go and have a word with them as well.
Charlotte, I've got a question here from a high academic student that we're sort of dealing with, and who unfortunately just dropped off the webinar at the very beginning. And one of her questions, and I will relay this back to her, is, if she applies to Groningen, like some of the American institutions, once you do apply and you sort of have scholarship opportunities that come available to you, does Groningen have something like that for high academic achievers? And what are the options if they do have something like that?
See, and whenever I hear this, I'm like, oh, the Dutch, and this coming from a UK perspective, the Dutch are an interesting group of people. They believe that at bachelor's level, partly because the fees, if you look at comparatively to the US, Australia, Canada, the fees are relatively low, comparatively low, heavily low. And therefore, the belief or understanding, particularly at bachelor's level, is that there are no scholarships. I can't even, and I think this is across the board. There might be sort of the odd bursary of 100 or 1,000, but there's generally no scholarships available. And that means that in order to get into the university at bachelor's level, you would have to pay the fees. At master's level, that changes a little bit, because then you start dabbling in a little bit of research, you've got a better understanding. At master's and definitely at PhD doctoral level, then there's more scholarships. But at bachelor's level, unfortunately, and mainly because the fees are low, and I didn't put a slide in where I compare fees across nations, but Dutch fees are usually about 10,000 euros or $10,000 lower than a good number of UK and definitely US private universities. So in that
Yeah.
sense, there aren't any scholarships, and it's a shame because I know the lady that asked is sort of high achiever. She studied really well, but I'm always sad to say that there aren't any available, unfortunately.
But, and you know, my sort of response to a lot of students that do ask those questions is, and this is what we were talking about when your connection cut during this webinar, was looking at the Netherlands as an option, comparing it to the US, to the UK, especially University of Groningen, which is highly
Yeah,
ranked. It is phenomenally cheaper, but you're not losing out on anything being it cheaper because of the way the Netherlands supports its universities,
yeah,
the way the government funds them, the way the research funding works into it. So don't look at it as being a cheaper option, meaning less education rankings and employability. No, no, no. It really is a worthwhile option to look at as well, especially if you're looking at economic options.
definitely, definitely. For what you're getting, the comparison I did is if you're looking at similarly ranked universities globally, so we're looking at around the 80 ranked 80, 75 mark, the fees that you're paying at other highly ranked institutions in the Netherlands, it's a lot lower. And this is not just with Groningen, but it's across the board. They're a lot lower for the
Yeah.
quality you're paying.
I think we've answered a lot of the Q&A questions. Just having a look at the chat box to see if there's anything there. I wanted to ask you a personal question about the university. What's the one thing that you would tell, especially a Southern African student that's coming from South Africa or Zimbabwe, you know, very similar to sort of the UK sort of high schooling system, university system? What would you recommend to them to help them assimilate into the culture in the Netherlands? What's some advice to help them sort of feel a little bit more at home and on those lines?
Good question. And this is probably from a me point of view as well as an adult. I would recommend study is what you're there to do and get in and study, but make sure that you take part in the university outside of the classroom, because the Dutch do this fantastically. They're all members of some kind of sports association. They're members of debating association. They're member of the rugby association, because these are friends that you generally will keep throughout. I have friends that are in their 30s that still hang out or in touch with people that they were in associations with. So yes, you're here to study. Yes, you're here to do well. Yes, you're here to get a degree, but connect with people outside of your study program. That's the first thing. The other thing that I would say is, and it's something that I'm working on, is you do not need Dutch. You do not need the language, but the university offers you 100 free hours of Dutch. And if you're thinking, oh, I might want to stay back and get a job here, or oh, I might want to integrate a little bit better, being able to speak even like a 4-year-old as I do, but being able to speak even a little bit of the language, it does help. And people often get to their second or third year and think, oh, I wish I'd picked up on that. I wish I knew a bit more of the language, because now I'm looking for work in the Netherlands, and they're saying that Dutch is preferred. Anything you can do to bolster your CV upon graduation, of course, you do all the skills, you do all the practical stuff that you need. You do, if you do volunteer work, you do extra modules, but sometimes we forget, okay, what else can I do in an international context? You don't need Dutch. You really do not. I know people that have been there for 8 years and do not speak a lick of Dutch. But what I say is, if you have it, it's another string to your bow. And if you speak Afrikaans or you understand Afrikaans, we have a few South African students. In fact, on our blogs, one of the students that writes our university blogs is Luke, and he's from Johannesburg. And he says his Dutch people love his Dutch because he speaks it with elements of Afrikaans in it. But he says that it helps to just assimilate as well. Not assimilate, but integrate, I'll say. Because the banter that happens at the coffee machine or the banter that happens outside of the classroom can be in Dutch. Of course, people banter in English, but having a little bit does help. So those are the two things. It's stuff outside of the classroom that will add a little extra something.
No, great. And it's good advice that, and I always, always look at it from putting myself into the student's shoes, and, you're sitting there and you're having a coffee and having that banter at the coffee machine as well. You never know, you might find a lifelong friend or a business connection or it's all about networking. As much as the university is about studying and getting your degree, you have to put yourself out there and network.
Yeah, it's making the most of it.
I've got a question here. I haven't read it, so I'm just going to read it straight out. So if it's not something we can answer, I do apologize. Hello, this is from Jane. Hello, I don't exactly know how to ask this, but with other university webinars, they mentioned that after studies, international students can work in the country for 2 years or so. So does it apply with the Netherlands, and do they do the same?
Yes, fantastic question, Jane. Thanks for listening in. And I have an answer to that. So in the Netherlands, and I'm going to butcher this because I'm saying it in Dutch, there's something called a zoekjaar, which is a search year, orientation year. So when you finish your degree, you can convert your student visa into an orientation year visa. What that means is that for 1 year, you can do whatever you want. You could pick strawberries if you want. You could sweep the streets if you want. But the idea is that at the end of that 1 year period, you have got a company that will sponsor your work visa. So when you finish your degree, and you can start that period, you can then do your master's, and you can then follow that up afterwards. You can step away for a bit, I think it's for 2-3 years, and then come back and pick that up. But you have a year to sort of find an employer. So you can do some internships if you want. You can do some part-time jobs while doing an internship. But at the end of that year, you're then able to hopefully get a sponsor that will sponsor your visa at the end of it. So hopefully that answers your question, Jane, does it? It's not a 2-year one, but I think in the 1 year, a lot of people are able to sort of put their feelers out. If you've done an internship as part of your program, then it's possible to reach back into those contacts again. But yeah, it's a fantastic question. Thanks, Jane. I hadn't touched upon that. But yes, you have a 1 year period for that. And I'll do a little smiley face for you as well.
Yeah. It's always hard when you're having these Zoom meetings, these Zoom presentations. You want to say thank you so much for that question, and it's like there's no interaction. So Jane, we'll give you both thumbs up for that one. So thank you very much.
Jane.
Please email us at info@global-education.co.za. Or my email is george@global-education.co.za. And we're one big family, so we'll definitely be able to get the right person in front of you, and to get the likes of Charlotte in front of you to have a conversation.
Definitely.
Charlotte, I've got a couple more questions for you. I know we're over the time.
No, that's fine. What I am going to do is I'm going to take 30 seconds, and I'm going to grab my charger because I'm at 3%, and I don't want it to cut out while we're talking. This is the joys of technology. Bear with me. I am here. Okay, let's just plug this in.
To everyone listening in, Charlotte is fantastic. She's got so much information, and especially with a top-ranked university like University of Groningen, to get that information out, it's not that easy. You can have the best Google searches, the best internet, the best browser, but to get real information for your own application, it's really difficult. And even using an agent as well, we'll always recommend get in touch with us. Let's put you in front of Charlotte and have that conversation. It's something that I think, me and you, but Charlotte, we both studied abroad. We both went through that international experience, and I'm sure you have the same feelings that I have. Was I wish I could have done more.
Yes. With hindsight now, and when I see what students do now, and they're like, oh, I was part of the debating team. I was on the Model United Nations while I was at university. Oh, I went and did 6 months in Costa Rica at a university there. I went to the university in the Caribbean. I'm like, gosh, what was I doing in my time? What did I do? I also wish that I'd reached out a lot more to universities, because they were there, and you went and you went and saw the odd open day, but I wish I'd sort of investigated a little bit more. And I think now, particularly with all the lockdowns and everyone being online, this is perfect, because everybody's, you're in my living room. Everyone's accessible now. And there's so many of these going on. I have a friend, my colleague's doing one of these for the US at the moment. So there's so many of these going on, and Global's all organizing so many of these during this period. So make the most of it and just reach out and ask. Just ask. It doesn't, it doesn't cost anything to ask. But yes, I wish I'd done more. And with hindsight, yeah, I could have done more.
I wanted to ask, and I know that we have answered these questions previously. So anybody that's not aware of this, I'm going to ask it to Charlotte, and please put your questions in the chat box if you do have anything further on this point. Charlotte, with the EU passport, a lot of South Africans and Zimbabweans who are holders of European passports, what's the benefit of that for the Netherlands specifically, in terms of fees and visas and things like that? If you could just go a little bit more into that.
Yes. Now I'm a bit sort of broken on this subject as a UK passport holder. I'm a bit bitter, but we won't get into that because of Brexit. As an EU passport holder, as I was until the 31st of December, the Netherlands, I mentioned, is very different from the UK, which I use as a benchmark. In the UK, you need to have been resident in Europe, well, back then, within the UK for about 5 years to qualify as a home student. In the Netherlands, you may have never set foot in Europe, but you have an EU passport, be it German, be it Italian, Spanish, Greek, Cypriot. You have the passport. That is all you need to get domestic fees. And if I give a comparison, all fees, whether bachelors and masters, are about 2,180 euro, roughly. If you're a non-EU passport holder and you're looking to do something in science and engineering, that's about, at this point, it's about 18,000. Or if you're doing arts and humanities, it's about 10,000. So the difference is great. And the reason for that is the Dutch government heavily subsidizes education for Dutch students. And by law, anything that a Dutch student has access to, an EU student has access to. Now, I have some good news for 2021 starters, and I think 2022 I need to think about as well, is that because of Corona, the government has halved the fees for bachelors anyway. And that's because they've seen that a lot of people have had to struggle in this year. People are probably going to have delayed their study. People have had to, so they've halved the fees at bachelor's level for students coming to study in the Netherlands. And because they've halved them for Dutch students, as I said, by law, if it's done for Dutch, it needs to be done for European. So if you have a European passport, and if not, ask your parents, see if you can dig one out from somewhere, then your fees are EU fees, and whatever the Dutch students are paying, you're paying. And that includes for medicine as well, which, as I said, it's very tough to get into, and it's not the easiest for anybody. But that also includes that instead of paying 32,000 euro, you're paying 2,180 or something. So it's a lot lower. So I'm glad you brought that up. Well,
yeah, no, and it's something that I think we all, especially in this economic climate that we all live in, we need to be doing whatever we can to sort of finding what our best options are, and especially from a price point of view, because it is an interesting time that we live in.
Yeah.
On that note, I've got another question for you here. As we all live in this pandemic world, with future jobs changing so fast, we've got a lot of technology courses and engineering changes and sustainability, but the pandemic has also put light a lot of lack of skills in terms of biotechnology and sort of vaccines and medicine and that side of things. Are there any new courses that Groningen's doing that's in line with that? Or is it purely just the standard medicine and engineering type courses?
No. I mean, and this is probably in the last, call us visionaries, but in the last year or two, we used to have biomedical sciences put together in one course, but then we split that up and we've got life science and technology. And with life science and technology, you look at sort of technological equipment, you look at sort of biomedical within that, you look at sort of how life science has also evolved and sort of medicine and how that ties into sort of things like molecular studies, genetics, things like that. And I think from a science point of view, that's huge. We've also got a number of courses within sustainability. That's predominantly at master's level, but we have the Energy Academy, which is actually a UN academy. It's part of the, I'm trying to think of the technical term, but it's the base for the UN with regards to energy and sustainability. And that's on our Zernike campus in Groningen. And so the UN has a base in that area of energy and sustainability in Groningen. Because within that region, we're very good at sort of wind farms and looking at other methods of energy. And they're doing a lot of research in that as well. And that's one of our 5 key research areas, together with sort of healthy aging, which is another issue that faces the world at the moment. And how do you address the issue of aging globally to ensure that people do live a longer life, but also do live a better quality of life? So if I'm looking at the 2 main areas that I can think of at the moment, it is predominantly sustainability focused and how we tie into that. But also things a lot around the life sciences and technology. And of course, in the last year, we developed a standalone MBA as well. So a business administration degree, but you can look at sort of health within that as well, rather than just looking at your standard MBA that you'd normally get. And that's at master's level.
Oh, fantastic. It's great to see that forward thinking, especially with jobs changing the whole time. What you studied 10 years ago might not be relevant, but to be able to sort of adapt and change with the times, and especially be looking at postgrad now, especially at Groningen, these are things to explore and have those conversations and see maybe something else that you'd like to do, especially from a master's point.
Well, you also mentioned, just one thing you mentioned from a looking forward, things like programs in the digital space. So looking at things in digital media or digital, we're not archiving, but I'm trying to think of the technical term for it, but looking at how people look at information in the digital space and how we manage that. And within our legal program as well, it's looking at how do we manage data? How do we manage things from a social media context? How do we manage privacy from a social media context and in an online context? And that's a huge thing right now, with everyone being online at the moment. How do you manage privacy? And our Faculty of Law, together with our campus Friesland, have done a degree in that area, which looks at data, privacy, elements of media, social media, etc., and how that's managed within in 2021 really, and going forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's something to look into. If you are on this webinar, please do look at Groningen's website. We will be sharing their content, all these webinars and presentations. So please look at that website. It is fantastic. And hopefully Charlotte will take a photo the next time she's in that office of her boardroom that's got that beautiful picture of the whole campus that I always talk about. So yeah, next time we'll have it on this webinar, I think.
Definitely, definitely.
Charlotte, do you have anything else you'd like to tell anybody and the students before we end this?
No, I just want to say thank you for your patience and for jumping in on this with me. Thank you for any questions that have been put forward and for managing the whole the whole technical issue side of it. I just want to say that it's a huge decision. It's a huge decision. And at this point, the gathering of information is free at this point, or it doesn't cost so much. If it's there, whether it's websites, whether it's using global, get the information, because this is like either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of your life. Gather that information. There are a series of webinars being held by Global, I know. Just get in touch with them or get in touch with the university reps and ask. But I think the most is choose what's right for you. I know my parents wanted me to be a doctor, I believe, but I went the international relations route. But make sure you pick something that's right for you, because you'll be doing this for a while. So get as much information as you can. I'm excited to have spoken to you. Hopefully I've given you a little nugget of information that you'll be able to use. But yeah, hopefully I'll hear from you all soon. And thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. And I know with the pandemic and the traveling, it's made things a little bit harder as well. So thank you. And we look forward to presenting you in the Southern African market again. And to all our students that are listening, all our recordings and our YouTube videos will all be live on YouTube in the next week, all the previous webinars. We've still got a whole month of webinars still to go, right up until the end of March. So please visit our website. It's on the screen here, globaleducation.co.za. Click on events, and then on events, click on our virtual events, and you'll see the entire expo that's there. And Charlotte's details are on our website, but please go straight to University of Groningen. Have a look at that website. It's a great university, and we'll make sure that we've got that photo of the building soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Bye. Oh.